My name is Taylor Rose and welcome back to my channel where we talk about everything reading and writing. So today we're going to talk about book piracy. My husband absolutely hates when I tell him about things that I read on Reddit because obviously, you know, the majority of the things there have to be false, but this story I felt was too good to pass up. So a few days ago on the Romantasy subreddit, this interesting post came up. Potato Afraid 2931 posted, "Help! Author suing me for saying her book is AI in a review." A few months ago, I read a book that was recommended here, obviously not naming it because apparently I'm already in enough trouble, and found an obvious AI line, quote, "Let out a breath she didn't know she was holding," end quote. I was suspicious right away. I kept reading and found more things that didn't even make sense. Quote unquote, "She patted across the floor," for example. That would be okay in a shifter romance, but humans don't pad. Characters were doing generic things like dragging their hands through their hair, clenching their jaws, and arching their eyebrows. A side character's name changed too, and only for one sentence. I don't want to post my exact review because I don't know if I should be talking about this online in the first place, and don't want to bring more attention to it. But all I said was that the book is AI, and I explained how I could tell. That's literally all I did. Be for real. Be for real. But the woman is suing me. I've been panic Googling for like 48 hours straight, and apparently she has to prove what I said was false. But how can she prove she didn't use AI? I'm a grad student. I have $73 in my bank account. I can't afford to deal with this right now. I'm literally so broke that I got the book through other means, so I'm wondering if the fact I didn't make a purchase might actually help. I know this is a stretch, but I'm in full panic mode. Maybe your grad school should let you go because clearly you haven't learned anything. What? Oh my god. Obviously from other means with cutesy little sparkle star emphasis, she's referring to book piracy. I saw some comment arguing that clearly they meant they borrowed it from a friend. No. I have really bad anxiety, and she's a big enough author. I think she has the resources to follow through. Should I message her and apologize and promise to delete the review? I would have already deleted it, but I feel like that's my only leverage at this point. Help. Edit. I'm in Florida if that matters. Editing again, because I was advised not to send anyone else pictures of the papers, but it was confirmed they are legit and not boilerplate. The author's in the US as well, so I don't think I can ignore this. And yes, this is a throwaway. My main has links to my Goodreads. I'm not doxing myself. This is absolutely insane. Like, first of all I did was say it is AI, and this is how I knew. Girl, be for real. Be for real. Unless there was an AI prompt left in, there's no way to tell. I know some people will be like, AI writing is just so absolutely atrocious. I don't think they understand how people use AI to write long form. Obviously, like those stupid LinkedIn posts and threads and stuff, like you can tell with the emojis and how sentences are broken up and stuff. Like, yeah, those are all kind of following the same like AI template, but that isn't how people use AI to write books. Not trying to defend them or anything. They shouldn't be, but... And then follows it up with, how can she prove she didn't use AI? How do you prove you didn't plagiarize any of your assignments? You obviously got through 4 years of undergrad and are now continuing into even further education. Like, how do you prove you wrote something? How do you prove you actually did the science experiment if you're some sort of STEM major? How do you prove anything? Notes, rough drafts, the document with layers or track changes or whatever. Like, and the comments tore this person apart. Crazy Plant Lady says, "I'm genuinely curious why you felt those particular phrases and sentences were AI. They all seem fairly common to me." Potato Afraid responds, "Well, there were typos and inconsistencies too, like a side character's name changing but only in one sentence, eyes changing color, etc." Terra Numeric says, "Lack of an editor is not a sign of AI. Those have been issues in books for decades, since the beginning of printing books." I distinctly remember reading a book as a child where a character was hit and killed by a specific vehicle. I think it was like a black van. And then later on, it's a red van. And the main character is like, oh my gosh, that has to be the van that killed so-and-so. But it was never acknowledged that the van changed color. So it'd be one thing if they're like, that's the exact body shape and that dent is the same, but they painted it or something. Like it was obviously that was a mistake that made it through. Every day, people are online complaining about poorly edited books. And yet somehow this person is like, well, only AI can make mistakes like that. No. Potato Afraid says she listed an editor on the copyright page, though. The editor has an AI profile picture, too. Audra Winter listed multiple editors, and we can see where that got her. Just because someone edited it doesn't mean the author accepted anything they said or implemented any of their information into the final draft. Tara Numeric responded, sorry, I don't trust your judgment of what an AI profile picture is, going by your example, what signs of AI in a book are. And like, especially, this person has to be a really young grad student or just oblivious to anything going on social media. Crazy Plant Lady responded to an earlier comment saying, I would say the book was poorly edited, but not likely AI. Either way, I'm not sure the author can sue based on your opinion posted in a place designated for reader opinions. Kalaya P responded to the main post. There's nothing about any of those examples that screams AI. All perfectly normal examples, if a bit cliche, that have been around much longer than AI. If you don't want to get sued for defamation, you probably shouldn't defame people. Apologize to the author and delete the review. If she chooses to take it further, then that's on you. You threatened her reputation and her livelihood. She had every right to respond. Potato Afraid asks, would apologizing be an admission of guilt? So Calliope says, okay, so did she message you and say she was going to sue you, or is there already a lawyer involved? If it's the former, message her and apologize without admitting guilt. If it's the latter, shut up and get your own lawyer. Your university may have legal assistance available. I'm not a lawyer, and this is not legal advice. Anxiously Waiting asks, what exactly is she suing you for? Defamation? It heavily depends on the wording you used in your review. Not legal advice. Potato Afraid says, thanks. Defamation. How would the wording matter? She has not been Googling hard enough over the last 48 hours if she still has that question. Anxiously Waiting says, because the legal implications change if you say something as an opinion versus fact. Nya-chan adds on, it has to be stated as a fact. So if you say something like, there are some suspicious things that make me think this author may be using AI, it's your opinion and not a fact. If you say, this author used AI to write their book, here's my evidence, then that is a statement of fact. You could argue that a review by definition is the opinion of the reader and therefore is not a statement of fact. Plenty Angle suggests, please reach out to a lawyer and stop pressing about it. The more you post, the more evidence you're giving them. Why would anyone here know what to do about this? You're just putting yourself more at risk. It's prob a nothing burger, but you need a lawyer to help get rid of it. Potato Afraid says, I'll delete the post later, but I'm broke and I needed to know if there's actually authors who are suing over this. The lawyers I have found all charge for consultations. What do you mean? Why wouldn't an author sue people who are going around saying they definitely use AI when there's no evidence? Like a prompt left in that proves definitively to anyone purchasing the book. Winter Storm says, yes, people who work for a living generally charge for their time. Bear with a Bow says, if OP doesn't want to pay for their books, Piracy. My guess is they don't want to pay for legal expertise either. No, probably not. Because I can tell you which one is way more expensive. The legal expertise. So this post ended up being shared over on Threads with Unfortunate Reads saying, admitting to pirating the book after accusing it was written by AI because of phrases in nearly every romance novel is a move. The AI witch hunt is dangerous on all levels. People who use Gen AI can get bent, but accusing without proof, or apparently a general level of media literacy at all, is not the way to go. Note, not OP since it isn't clear, but the screenshots. Author Jake Eaton says, this author is using normal phrases. It's gotta be AI. Ugh, I am so over these witch hunts already. Me too. Unfortunate Reads says, someone decided my cover was AI because it was airbrushed. Yeah, I'm over it. Author Jake Eaton says, wait till they find out celebrities use the airbrush tool. I got accused of AI because, and I quote, the writing is so bad it must be AI. So too good is AI, too bad is AI. We authors can't win. Even though social media posts, all the AI ones sound the same. A, that's what they're asking the AI for. B, the AI is literally just aggregating tons of written material and averaging it out. So it's like on a prose level, I don't think you can accuse AI of just being like so absolutely horrendous when it's just like average, boring, normal sentences. Like, sure, when you get more into the long form, logical consistencies, yada, yada. Like those are things that AI can't do particularly well, but just because you happen to write boring, average prose. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer. This person on Threads claims to be. Legally Bookish Serena says, I've been very vocal on these apps about the legal travesty that AI's role has played on authors and creatives, especially the fact that authors, specifically new authors, no longer have the benefit of doubt that their work is original. However, as a lawyer, I cannot in good conscience encourage the rhetoric I am seeing of the abuse of litigation against reviewers expressing their opinions. Yes, some moronic that an author may have used AI. Defamation requires a false statement of fact. In other words, something like, this author actually confessed to using AI, and it's false. Any statement based on someone's interpretations of something, even if it sounds like a fact, they used AI, is still an opinion and therefore not defamation. There is a case law exception that says if the opinion comes from an expert established in the field, it can be taken as fact. A reviewer is not an expert. Without this false statement of fact, the defamation case is on its face frivolous. Anyone can bring a lawsuit, sure. Yes, you can prove a point, punish the person. You will have a hard time finding a good lawyer to bring it because it won't get them a payout and it will be immediately dismissed. And for what? Stifling the reviewer space from expressing their opinions through threats, fear, and coercion? There has to be a better way. A Place in the Sun responds, I commented similarly on a post where a college student is concerned about being litigated against for accusing an author of writing their book with AI. The student has $73. I don't agree with the accusation of how it was made, but it's in the context of reviewers and readers being hyper-vigilant in the book space about AI. Simultaneously, there's another thread about an author who just confirmed their cover's AI and countless people questioned it. There's a lot happening in the bookish space. Legally Bookish Serena says, this is exactly what my post is referring to. Go through my replies and you will see my thoughts with those that were respectfully engaging. AI is going to set precedents in all areas of law, even defamation. So yes, case-by-case arguments can be made, but a majority of standards don't really change. And the point isn't so much that about this person, but the precedent we set in the book community. Enigma M says, nah, suing someone over a review is actually fucking insane. If the reviewer got the impression from reading the book that it sounds AI generated, they're perfectly within the right to put that in their reviews. Reviews don't have to be positive. It might be a stupid thought to have because those are commonly used lines, but to sue someone for writing a review is unhinged. Coleman House Stuff says, she didn't say it sounded AI generated. She said it is AI generated, and she claimed she had proof. That's libel. You actually can't do that without verifiable proof. In a review, you're only allowed verifiable facts, suggestions, and opinions. You can't make baseless claims, however. If I reviewed Mario Kart on an official review board and said it was a game used to help traffic children, I'd get sued. Claiming that a restaurant gave you food poisoning when it didn't, you can get sued. I Am Tom Hartley says, they're not being sued for writing a review, though. They're being sued for defamation. Imagine for a moment a good critic reviews a restaurant and says that they had something non-vegan in their vegan food. The restaurant denies it. Are they supposed to just let the review exist, damaging their reputation? It's just a review. No, they would get the review removed. Which, if this lawsuit's real, I imagine that was probably, that had to have been the first thing the author tried to do, is get the review removed. And my gut says they would only move forward with the lawsuit if the site told them, no, we're not removing it. Or maybe it's just a crazy author who immediately jumps into lawsuits. I don't know. McKenna Mall says, actually, no, it's not unhinged. This is the author's livelihood, and this arrogant little grad student who didn't even buy the book has stated in writing that the author did not write the book. That's defamation, plain and simple. The fact that this grad student then admits online that they stole the book just adds to their problems. Amanda Linz adds, it isn't simply because they left a review, it's because the content of the review. Suing over a bad review of, this book just wasn't for me, is insane. That isn't what the review was. She made a statement as fact with no ability to prove it's true. Stating an author uses AI to do all their writing damages their reputation. Publishing a false statement that damages someone's reputation is called libel. Suing for libel is not insane at all. Bo Spector says it's not a review, it's an accusation, which is in fact slander. If this author can prove it's their own work and not AI, I totally agree with that. I don't know. Maybe it's not correct. But I'm looking at the Shouse California Law Group. Obviously, the student claimed they're in Florida. Who knows where the author is located? But Shouse Law says, to bring a successful defamation claim in California, you must prove 4 facts. 1, that someone made a false statement of purported fact about you. 2, that the statement was made, published to a third party. 3, that the person who made the statement did so negligently, recklessly, or intentionally. And 4, that as a result of the statement, your reputation was damaged. And I feel like if this situation is real, all 4 of those are being met. They used AI. I can prove with my rough drafts, my notes, my document history that I did not use AI. 2, it was published to a third party. So it was posted on review sites. Who knows how many review sites this person posted this on? I'm going to assume only Goodreads because they mentioned Goodreads specifically. But again, who knows? It could have been to multiple websites. 3, the person who made the statement did so negligently, recklessly, or intentionally, right? So 3, they intentionally posted this review saying they used AI and here's why. Versus 4, reputation was damaged. Maybe, I don't know. Just Googling around, I wasn't able to find an author saying they had a review accusing them of AI matching this context. There are a lot saying, I was accused of AI because my prose was bad or because of my cover art or whatever, but none that mentioned patting feet and arching eyebrows and stuff. Generic phrasing. That isn't to say an author hasn't posted about this, but as far as I could see trending online, there was not anything. So, but we've seen how these authors who are caught with AI prompts in their work have been treated on threads for good reason. Like, they should have their reputation damaged if there is definitive proof that they're using AI. But if people are going to stumble across that review and then start sharing it, like I can totally see how, damage could be perceived. The site continues and says, California law recognizes 2 types of defamation: libel, where the statements are made in writing or other tangible medium, which this would be, and slander, where the statements are made orally. The article then goes on to discuss like free speech defense, other defenses, yada, yada. Basically, they just point out that the United States Supreme Court has long held that there is no constitutional value in false statements of fact. So free speech doesn't technically cover situations where people are lying, obviously. Pretty funny. I don't know. This whole situation. People now have a lot of gall accusing authors of these things when there have just always been generic, blandly written books. That's not a product of AI. That is a product of humanity being a spectrum. Continuing on about piracy, there was this post from the other week that I saved because I was just so flabbergasted. So author Ophelia Rains posted some screenshots with the caption, I highly recommend blocking this person because what the fuck is this? Buying a book, lending it to your friend? Okay. Buying a book, scanning the pages, converting it into a PDF/EPUB, and then putting it on a website for others to benefit off of is theft. Then to threaten self-inflicted bodily harm? Insane. Anyone who uses self-inflicted harm like this as a tactic to control, please unfollow me pronto. And so you can see in the screenshots, Ophelia had commented on a thread, this piracy conversation is so annoying because y'all wouldn't walk into a store and just start taking shit without paying, right? Because that's called stealing. You can't be anti-AI but pro-piracy. That makes no sense. And Legate JK responded, and this is the part where I unfollow. If buying isn't owning, pirating isn't stealing. And they do kind of have a point. There is the issue with if you buy digital media, Amazon took away copies of this book because it turned out that it was like obtained illegally. So like they weren't actually allowed to have been selling it. So people had a book disappear from their library. If Amazon deletes your account, for example, you lose everything that you've bought attached to that account, that sort of thing. I know there have been issues with like some gaming sites doing stuff like this. So like, yeah, the argument is if you don't physically own something, it's possible that it can be taken away or disappeared and you have no recourse. Yeah, I agree. That's like a really gray area and bad. But those are all issues that we have with the distributor of the product, not with the creator. So it's like I can see like where their argument's trying to come from, but at the end of the day, you're still hurting the individual who makes a living off of that product. You know, it's different if you're like shoplifting from Walmart versus shoplifting from the farmer's market. Do you know what I mean? I think it's an argument that has a lot more nuance than this person is giving the conversation. So Ophelia Rains responded, you can buy a product, but you can't mass produce as a seller when rights were never granted to you. You can unfollow, you didn't have to announce it. And Legate answers. Knowing Threads users, I'm going to give you a fair warning. Post a single screenshot and I will cut myself with a razor. Excuse you? So Ophelia says, you're a disgusting person and I'm happy you're no longer following me. Using the threat of self-inflicted bodily harm in order to control people is a sign of narcissism. I have the date you deserve. That is so creepy. It gives, if you dump me, I'll hurt myself. Like, on a funnier note, there was this post from a few days ago. She said, a bookstagrammer I follow admitted in their stories to 214,000 followers that she pirated a book to read. This is not okay. And she posted a screenshot of the Bookstagrammer's story where they said, Instagram voted one way, but I'm at the lake with my Kindle, pirate book downloaded, and forgot to bring immortal consequences. Consider this a coup. It's ish like this when you have thousands of followers and you're admitting to pirating a book. You're saying this is okay? It's not. But then everyone in the comments is like, for fuck's sake, this is why it's extremely important that you know for sure what you're talking about before trying to slander someone's name. The book she's talking about is literally about pirates. It's not a pirated book. It's a pirate book about pirates. So instead of actually verifying that this is referring to piracy of a book and not actually a book about pirates, you just assume without any actual proof, it's a book about a pirate. Also, if you zoom in on the cover, there's literally a ship. And like, you know, not to call them out, we all misread stuff occasionally. I just think it goes to show, like, people have gotten really comfortable jumping to conclusions. Like, really comfortable. Too funny. Well, do you think an author is justified in suing a reviewer who accuses them of, or states as a fact that they are using AI? Obviously, I'm not a lawyer. I might be missing some information, but I really don't see how this situation in particular is inherently different from any other defamation case. But, well, that is all I have for you today. I will see you next time.